I don't think that that the Port of Metro Vancouver, as busy a port as it is and as successful a port as it is, should become a major oil export port.
There was a huge uproar after water scientist David Schindler found deformed fish in the Athabasca River downstream from the oil sands,
leaving behind scenes like this along much of the Gulf Coast.
Some analysts say that what the president could do is back the project, but also modify it or offer new measures that would reduce carbon pollution.
You know what? It's getting the tinfoil hats on. We're having one of those days today where it's just too many facts that make too much sense.
It must be a conspiracy.
It must be a conspiracy. Things are strangely working out for us. Welcome to the winning team. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And I'm Monica Salmark.
Today we're talking about all kinds of stuff, and we're linking together with a broadcast we did last week live, where we're talking about fossil fuels, but we've got a major update.
Well, we have an election coming up here in BC. And, of course, energy is the top of the agenda.
So we're right there. We've got the information for you. Check it out. Adrian Dix. Here's the clip. You be the judge.
The Kinder Morgan proposal, as we understand it, would dramatically transform what that pipeline does. Currently, it's used, as I say, largely for the West Coast. It would transform it essentially into a pipeline designed for oil bitumen export. We feel, anyway, that, of course, we have to wait to see a formal application. I don't think that the Port of Metro Vancouver, as busy a port as it is and successful a port as it is, should become a major oil export port. We will have our own review of that project in British Columbia, and decisions will be made there.
That's how we start things off. It's Radio Free Canada. Do you believe him? That's my question.
No.
Yeah?
I'll be really upfront and honest. I think that's a bit of a sidestep. And Adrian Dix is aware of the money potential and doesn't want to be against it.
Well, I know, but I mean, I think it does have some people to pay attention to in the Port of Vancouver who don't want all that oil coming through.
Yeah, adding another 300 tankers a year.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a thing for a successful port. But we want you to get informed and not put up with the propaganda and the nonsense coming out of the oil company.
Speaking of propaganda,
just so happens,
you want to see how your tax dollars are being spent.
Yeah, you want to see it?
Check this out.
And propaganda is us, Radio Free. Start smiling because we're winning. Welcome to the winning team.
Government used Earth Day today to launch a long-promised resource. A new website will give Canadians access to ongoing research about the land, air, and water around the oil sands. The government says it will show the world Canada's oil sands are not to be feared. But as Margot McDermott tells us, some say it's not that simple.
This scientist is testing tissues from animals that live near Alberta's oil sands. The results will eventually be posted on a new monitoring website. Today, the lab was the backdrop for the federal and Alberta environment ministers who jointly launched the new portal.
To establish real facts, real scientific facts on exactly what the impact of industrial development is in the sands.
There was a huge uproar after water scientist David Schindler found deformed fish in the Athabasca River downstream from the oil sands. Soon after, a special federal panel concluded that environmental monitoring of the massive development was a complete mess. The government pledged to clean up its act. The website is part of the promise to publicly release all scientific observations of how the oil sands are affecting the environment. Schindler says the website still needs independent oversight to make sure the government doesn't leave out bad news.
People will still be suspicious that spin doctors from government or industry are going to filter the data.
And environmental groups have a lot of questions about how the raw information will be used.
How is that reliable is that data, and if that data will actually be used to inform management decisions about the oil sands.
It will take 2 years to get the new website up and running. Meanwhile, there are no plans to slow development. Both governments have approved so many new projects, the oil sands could more than double in size in the next 2 decades. Margot McDermott, CBC News, Ottawa.
Okay.
Wow. Isn't it nice to know that the government and big oil has our best interests at heart?
Yeah. I mean, do you feel more informed?
Well, in 2 years to complete the website.
I know, 2 years to complete a website with data that they freely and openly have.
Right.
And it's so hard to put together a website.
And, of course, we're going to get scientific data from this government.
Well, yes.
Oil!
About oil.
As if in 2015 they're going to be in power.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's really going to work out well for them. And, you know, they're ignoring the fact that there's absolutely huge cases of cancer being reported by the Indian bands that are downstream from all these tailing ponds.
But, you know, what could go wrong with an oil spill or, you know, the fact that they may even be using foreign immigrant workers to put together this pipeline.
And foreign steel to build the pipeline. I mean, the pipeline is coming, you know, steel and pipes from India.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, that makes me feel so good.
I mean, of course, then again, we did run the story on our Facebook group where Conrad Black failed to get his refinery built.
Yeah.
He had $25 billion set up to build a refinery to process the tar sands, and that got blown out of the water.
Well,
Nobody's saying why.
I guess because the Koch brothers have more money.
Well, and
Just,
isn't Conrad Black kind of a gray hat?
Uh-huh. You know, but you're pointing out facts again.
Oh, whoop.
Monica, I'm telling you about pointing out facts.
Now, last week we talked about the Independent Review Board coming out with 199 conditions for the Keystone Pipeline. Those are the Enbridge.
These are some friends of mine, and listen to this.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay. You be the judge, though. Don't trust us. Just use your brain.
April 20th, 2010. An explosion in the Gulf of Mexico sets off the nation's worst oil spill, leaving behind scenes like this along much of the Gulf Coast. Over 1,000 miles of shoreline were oiled. 3 years later, things seem to be back to normal above water.
Visually, the coast looks great.
But it's what's below the surface that's concerning environmentalists.
That a tremendous amount of the oil, the heavier tars, and where tar had accumulated organic material and so forth, on the coastline, a lot of that got buried. 6 million pounds were removed from Louisiana in 2012. So we are far from a stage where everything's been cleaned up.
And the fishing industry is still trying to catch up.
You know, when you lose a customer base due to a disaster like a BP oil spill or something that's not controlled, a weather event, you know, we have to work that much harder to get those guys back to capture what we lost.
It's still unknown who will be held accountable for the disaster and the ongoing recovery. A trial underway in New Orleans will determine how much each company represented on the Deepwater Horizons drilling rig is responsible for the explosion. Bob McCall, Associated Press.
Okay, so, I'm confused. Do we not have enough environmental science showing that this transfer of bitumen through pipelines is actually really not a good idea?
But it's not oil, it's sand.
But why don't you ask the people in Mayflower, Arkansas, whether passing bitumen through a pipeline...
It's not bitumen, it's sand.
No, it's bitumen.
And isn't sand more corrosive to pipe than oil?
Well, there's all these other secret chemicals they inject into it to make it flow faster, and the high temperatures they have to transport it at.
You know what? You hit on something, and I am making fun here. It is they called it sand. They had a sand
spill,
and they didn't say it was oil down in Arkansas. But the secret chemicals that they put in to transport the bitumen is a major problem because these are wildly carcinogenic.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and we can say that because it's not like we have inside information. They're hiding it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I have a question.
Yeah.
If oil spills in a forest and no one sees it, does it get cleaned up?
That's a good question.
And they're monitoring. They don't actually go. They found one. We found one on the internet where hunters found it. And it's been going on for 20 years. We've got more. What do you got?
Well, remember that little thing that happened? Oh, that's April 20th. That's the day I was looking for. 2 years ago, April 20th. BP oil platform?
Yes. So
boom.
The signs are that it's headed for approval, but some of the president's biggest benefactors want him to say no. And one of the most vocal is Tom Steyer. He's the billionaire founder of Fairlawn Capital Management, who actually held a fundraiser for the president at his home just a couple of weeks ago. And actually, while the president was there, he said that the politics of the pipeline are just really tough because you have to also factor in the struggling economy and the president's argument that it will help create middle-class jobs. But Steyer, he is part of a group of some 100 donors, activists, clean energy activists as well, upping the pressure on the White House and other Democratic candidates. The Next Generation Committee Super PAC, it's raised $750,000. It's spent more than $500,000, according to Federal Election Commission data. And among the races that it's targeted, it's an April 30th Democratic primary for an open U.S. Senate seat in Massachusetts. It pits Representative Ed Markey, a Keystone opponent, against Representative Stephen Lynch, who has been supportive. Now, these activists say it's a test of whether or not the president is going to make good on his word to make climate change a priority in his second term after failing to do so in his first. Some analysts say that what the president could do is back the project, but also modify it or offer new measures that would reduce carbon pollution. And, you know, look, there is money behind the anti-Keystone effort, but they really are in a minority, and that makes it more difficult for the president to reject the pipeline. The American people overwhelmingly favor the project. The oil industry, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and the Canadians are all lobbying very hard for it. And a State Department review also found that the pipeline would have a negligible effect on climate change.
I'm concerned.
Okay.
How, if this is how it's being presented with BP, what happens when Keystone bursts? Who's going to take care of that mess?
Well, that would be on the onus of the taxpayers.
Oh, wait a second. Yes.
Probably.
Cleaning up sand spills, that's our problem. Getting the profit from the oil sands, that's their prerogative.
Yeah, of course.
While we got time, I want to run this real quick and just fit it in so you can have more outrage. Or, not.
I will personally take you around to the pipelines and show you. And if you can come back with the same opinion, I will be floored. I mean, would we really rather ship oil across the oceans? You're talking about a catastrophe. We're buying the oil. The percentages of barrels that are shipped daily from rail, from road, and from water, the accidents versus the pipeline accidents is at a fraction. And yet your group is making a big deal about this ExxonMobil spill. I think Exxon should be actually patted on the back for the way they handled this. Yes, it was horrible. Yes, we don't like to see it, but they handled it. They did a great job handling it. I thought they showed an example of what can be done when a catastrophe happens. And the pipe spills versus the over the rail, water, and roads is at a fraction. You can, as I was sitting here in the meeting, I Googled it. Just something you have in your hand too. And you could see the fraction of the accidents versus pipelines versus rail, road, or water. It's coming. And the extension at Cushing, we're going to be shipping it to Cushing and then injecting it into the pipeline. Why wouldn't we just put it in the pipeline all the way down? I don't understand it.
Can I briefly say, first of all, I'd love to take you up on.
Even the guy sitting next to him is like, wow.
Yes, that was Representative Mullen from Oklahoma.
Okay.
Oh.
And what did you say?
He said that...
how many oil spills?
13 spills in 30 days.
Okay, 13 spills in 30 days, and they deserve a pat on the back?
Well, they weren't all ExxonMobil.
How about a kick in the pants?
And, of course, their response was paper towels.
Probably
and
that
convicts,
really absorption.
and a no-fly zone, and no press allowed in because they had their own goon squad to keep them out.
Are you getting informed? Check our facts. It's radio free. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
I'm Monica Salmark.
Pats on the back for us for keeping our lunch down. We're going to come back with something real cool. Hang on.
The Conservative government stopped debate on Bill C-474 without hearing the whole story. The GMOs are bad for you. Genetically modified organics are threatening the food system in Canada, and Bill C-474 could protect you. In December of 2010, our government is voting on Bill C-474. It's a real chance for our future. Please read about it, then join us.